Are. Welcome, everybody, to Ren's Training Camp Journal, put on by the Petercast, episode 8, I believe. I was planning on doing this a little later today. I had the pressers, had my notes all written down from the press conferences. Not really much happened in practice. Same old, same cast of characters, although Bobo Wilson did look. It seemed that he splashed a little bit, and Rojo looked a little better from what I understand. But the depth chart came out today. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to overanalyze and we're going to see where everyone's at, where the rookies are at, where the veterans are at, where everyone is wide receivers, linebackers, running backs. There's some things to get into, some things to talk about. I think it's going to be really interesting. But having said all that, this means absolutely nothing. Cutter hates the the depth chart, and but we don't. We love it, so we're gonna get into it. But first, let's go ahead and go over the press conferences. Um, we will start there. Dirk Cutter, he had a few things to say today. Not a bad press conference, all things considered. Uh, Somebody asked about the O line rotation. The right side of the O line is really banged up right now. Dot's probably not going to play much, if at all, in Miami. Benenox hurt. We're not sure if he's going to go. And then Dot's main backup, Leonard Wester, he's been out, and we're not sure if he's going to go. So Alex Kappa, might be getting a lot of playing time. And then outside that, Cole Boozer or Brad Seaton are some guys that might, will probably getting a lot of playing time at that rat tackle position, if not starting. As it is right now, I think Kappa is going to get the start over Benenoch just because of injury. But it brings up an interesting point because we have three quarterbacks that we have to protect, as in stay healthy. With the right side of the line being so depleted, when exactly do you sort of go to, since these guys are second, third stringers, you know, when do you go to the third and fourth string guys? Because you've got to get Fitzpatrick in and get him playing time. You got to get Griffin and get him playing time. You got to get Jamison and him playing time. Do you wait till all of those guys have played their parts of the game before you start switching out that right side of the offensive line? We saw it last year, first game of the preseason. I was really excited to see Ryan Griffin play against some other competition, get some chances with the twos, because the year before he's only played with the threes and fours. In the first series, he got the ball. Cole Gardner missed the block. This guy got this huge, 15-yard sprint at his blind side, hit him, landed on his shoulder, and Ryan Griffin was out until like week 8, I believe, of the regular season. So uh, that's something Cutter has to think about. And he also talked about how he's going to possibly change the play calls, which would mean either quick passes or have tight ends and backs over there helping out the right side of the line, chipping extra blockers over there. Or, just there's some plays that he would normally like to look at. They're just going to be off the table because he knows they're taking longer to develop, and he doesn't want, and he's not sure that'll have the time and be able to keep his quarterback upright and healthy. So I think the worst case scenario coming out of Miami is getting one of these three guys hurt, Fitzpatrick, Griffin, or Winston. Obviously, if it's Winston, he has the most time to heal. But I guess worst case scenario would probably be Fitzpatrick. And then what do you do? Then you got two guys that might possibly be starting the season, and neither of them has thrown a game in the NFL, and one hasn't even spent a whole, Allen from Arkansas. I always want to call him Bo. I know his name, Austin Allen, from Arkansas. He's spent about 6 weeks in an NFL on an NFL team altogether. So that'll be interesting to watch as far as the preseason game goes. Someone asked about Bobo Wilson, and Dirk Cutter was very quick to point out, because a few times he's talked about how Bobo's been very coachable, how he's improved a lot, one of the most improved guys in the wide receiver room, if not on the team entirely. And Cutter was quick to point out, which is something that Brent and I pointed out when we were doing our Hard Knocks episodes, which we aired right after the show. Hard Knocks would show up on HBO, and then we'd get on the air right after it. And we called it Talking Knocks. And it was something we talked about, that, it is a reality TV show. So the little few clips you saw of Bobo Wilson that were in a negative light, Dirk Cutter said this might be 1 out of 100. And that's something I said too. Like, Bobo Wilson could have been, the perfect training camp player 98 times, but the two that you know, weren't exactly exemplary, were the ones that Hard Knocks chose to show. Now, Dirk Cutter didn't say that exactly. There probably was a little friction there between the coaching staff, the front office, and Bobo Wilson, but it looks like all that's behind them now. And we'll get into a little later. It looks like he's the front runner, at least right now. Um, if we're taking the depth chart as gospel. He's the fifth wide receiver spot. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But I thought that was cool that someone talked about Bobo, and Cutter was very quick to bring up that look. What you saw in Hard Knocks last year isn't the guy that he is now. And then they asked about Vita Vea. After you've seen today, there's lots of pictures and tweets about how he has his boot off, so his calf is doing well. I do not expect him to be playing in Miami. But Cutter said he's riding the bike and he's doing some exercises in the pool, which is the best you could sort of hope for. And he's keeping his weight down and keeping his weight off, which Cutter said is something, that seems to be a real trouble spot for the heavier guys, is when you're not practicing, you're not in the heat and sort of the NFL training camp or even practice grind. It's real easy for guys of that size to put on some weight, but he was real happy. He said that Vita is doing really good in that aspect. So it looks like, as far as he's taking it seriously and he gets it and he knows the things that he has to do, talking about Vita Vea, as far as to make that team or to be the best player he can be, at least we know when he gets hurt, he's not going to get fat. So we got that going for us. And the last thing from Dirk Cutter's press conference, and I think it's a little bit worth mentioning, not a big deal, but Chuck Pagano, the ex Colts head coach, is uh, with the Bucs these past 2 days. He's doing some officiating work, or he's helping the officials. I guess sort of a liaison between the officials and a head coach. So if they have a question, or like, how would a head coach handle this, or how should I handle this, I'm going to a head coach, they can actually talk to an ex-head coach. Mike Smith did this a couple years ago before Dirk Cutter hired him as defensive coordinator. So instead of, like, the league or the officials actually calling up a head coach and bothering them, taking time out of their day trying to coach their football team, they have these appointed ex-head coaches and very recent ex-head coaches to sort of bounce ideas off, and how would you think about this or feel about this, or how would you look at this? So him and Dirk Cutter, I guess, have been friends for a long time, and Dirk invited him down. He's going to be there. He was there today, and he's going to be there tomorrow, which is good because I'll be at training camp tomorrow. Another open to the public training camp on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, and I'm going to be there. We had two more press conferences. We had OJ Howard. Both these press conferences are pretty short. They were under 5 minutes. But OJ Howard's there wasn't a lot to talk about. One question was, advice for the young guys. Confidence, uh, keep it up, play fast. Even if you do something wrong, keep playing fast. Things like that. Yes, I'm anxious to hit somebody else in a different colored jersey, different colored helmet. But there was a good question, and it asked him, what he think he's improved from last year, and he talked about route running, and it wasn't just getting separation, or being more technical in his routes, or his stems, and his breaks. He just said all of it. So it was something that he really paid attention to, put a lot of work into this, during the off season, and the OTAs and minicamp, and it appears, at least he thinks, it's paying off. So that's where he thinks he he has improved the most. But honestly, I thought it was going to be. I thought the answer right away was going to be blocking, but it wasn't. So he's working on being a better all around tight end. And the Chris Godwin, OJ Howard, where they're almost seemed for like the first half of the season, there was this designated to come on the field and block on run plays. Uh, Slowly but surely, both those guys got some more work, and I think they're going to be full speed ahead week one, which will be good to see. Um, and then we'll move on to Peyton Barber, who also had the last press conference. And then I see there's some questions in the chat room I'll get to right after this. Peyton Barber. Okay. This wasn't much to this either. This was a lot of, other fluff and things. My goal is to be the starting running back. That's his goal. He wants to beat out Rojo. He wants to beat out Sims, Rogers, Wilson. He feels that he's quicker and he's more explosive. And from what I've seen, he does look quicker and more explosive. He doesn't look as quick as Rojo or as explosive as Rojo, but he looks stronger than Rojo. It's one of those things where I think Peyton Barber is quicker than most people think, and I think Rojo's more powerful than most people think. Even though I think quickness is Rojo's biggest attribute and power could be Barber's biggest attribute, but I think the speed and power are better than people give him credit for each back. He also said that Rojo's really pushing him. This was kind of funny because he talked about it. He's like, yeah, he's powerful, he's quick, he's fast, he's good at blocking and catching. And I was like, that's when I sort of like quit listening. Like, he's doing a great job in blocking and catching. He's not doing a great job in picking up the pass protection. He's not doing a great job in catching the football. He may be doing better than he did in OTAs or rookie mini camp, but he's still got a little ways to go. But I have no doubt that he's going to pick it up. He actually had his best day today. There was lots of tweets out there about him picking up pass protection and breaking off a big run or two. So he's only 20, so he's getting a little more acclimated, feeling more comfortable in camp, and sort of how OJ Howard said, like he's starting to be able to play fast. Just play ball. Just let instincts take over and things like that. So I think the arrow is finally trending up for Rojo. At least today it was. Oh, and the last thing I found pretty interesting was, the reason Peyton Barber, he didn't make the team the first year. He was on the practice squad pretty much the whole year, I believe. He made it last year because of Doug Martin's suspension, and he played his way on the team. But he had a real hard time with pass protection when he got here. He catch the ball just fine, but knowing where to go and then actually picking up the block was something that Peyton Barber struggled with, and he's really had to work on. And the question was asked, and I believe sort of the spirit of the question was, how hard is it coming from college to the pros and learning pass protection? And he talked about Gus Malzahns, the Auburn head coach when he was there. I think he still is. That his offense was so unique. He didn't use that word, but what he did say is like he almost had to reteach himself how to play football because the offense that they ran at Auburn was nothing like the things he was taught there was not any of the things they wanted him to do as a Buccaneer. So it took him a little while to catch on. USC runs a more pro style offense, so it might be a little quicker for Ronald Jones the third, and or the second, and so that's what we're hoping. And we'll see where it goes from there. But that's it about the press conferences. I talked a little bit about the excuse me, about practice, who flashed, who looked good. But honestly, we said it last pod. We're ready for football. We're ready for Miami. Let's go. Let's see these backs. Let's see this defensive line. Let's see these new cornerbacks. Let's see the fifth wide receiver spot, the fourth linebacker spot. Let's see where we're at and watch these guys play against some live competition. So what everyone's waiting for. I'm going to answer the questions and we're going to get right into the depth chart. Antonio, what's up, man? Good to see you. Oh, thanks everyone once again for saying hello to us and taking the time to say hi to Brent and I on Thursday, Stick Carrier Takeover Day. It's validating. Brent and I talked about this for like, how many people would it take to download to be able to keep doing this? Because I don't care what any podcaster tells you. There's a big percentage of it where we just sort of like to hear ourselves talk. Like we do. We think we have something to say, and it's a real easy format to get out, and you could put it out there for people to listen to. And Brent and I have found an audience with the Pewtercast, and it's great. But a lot of people came up to us way more than I was ever expecting and said hi and appreciate our work. One guy actually said, you're my favorite podcast, which was nice. I'm sure everyone that came up to me thought that too. I don't know, just kidding. But let's get back to the comments. I got the season ticket holder package. All right, nice. Does that mean you'll be there tomorrow, Antonio? If so, we'll send some texts and hook up, say hi a little bit. Hearing a lot of Bobo hype this camp. I like it. Yeah. I just talked a little bit about Bobo. He is fast. And when he got his chances last preseason on the punt return, he had the best punt returns during the preseason, but a lot more goes into it, into that fifth and possibly sixth wide receiver spot. And they wanted to go with someone a little more experienced because Freddie Martino, even though he doesn't handle the ball on special teams, he's a very good special teams player, where he can play all kick coverages and all like both sides of it. Punt coverage and kick and punt return, kick coverage and kickoff return. And a guy like that with his body type, his athleticism, his speed, his hands, onside kicks, those are I think that's just sort of what put him above Bobo. But we'll see this year. It's going to be interesting. By the play reaction as well. Also been hearing about Rojo not looking so great until today. That is correct. We talked about that. Apparently he's improving, question mark. Well, yeah, I think so. At least today, like I said, his arrow seems to be trending up today. On the initial depth chart is interesting. Yes. It says number 3 on the initial depth chart is interesting, which we are going to get into. We'll get into the running backs because that was one of the things that I think everyone was like, and we'll talk about it. Any knowledge on this new autograph event the Bucks are scheduled for Friday? I have not heard anything about it. I'll take a look at it later. Maybe I can talk about it tomorrow on the pod about what's going on. Now that Brent and I have had our 2 days of all access credentialed media, we're trying to find a next step to take with the Buccaneers. And one of the things we threw out there and suggested to them is like, would it be cool if we got press credentials to cover things like this autograph, or the Women in Red event, or the pumpkin patch, or the turkey giveaway? We could show up and get some sound from guys. During or even beforehand, so we could promote it on the show and let people know what's going on out there. Because honestly, if you don't click on like Buccaneers.com, it's you don't really you don't hear about these. At least I don't hear about these things until the day of, or hey, look what the Buccaneers just did. So we want to help them get that word out, and we just think that's the natural next step. Now, is it gonna, are they gonna be open to it? I don't know. We hope so. But for us, and I know for most of you out there, it's all about the name on the front of the jersey, not so much the back. And last question before we get to the depth charts. Oi, what is the word on injuries today? Heard Dirk say something like 4 or 5. Yeah, I don't know. I looked around. Not a lot of people talked about it, or anybody really that I saw on Twitter about who went out. I'll be able to. That's something I'm going to look at tomorrow for sure, about who's the bucket hat brigade, who's not dressed in full pads, and who will be sitting out. So apparently maybe it wasn't I guess a starter or a big name player, because when Vita Vea went out, everyone had it. Like, oh my, like, oh, Vita Vea is walking off the field holding his calf. Oh my God, it could be an Achilles, blah. So, maybe it was some like of guys in the depth chart a little bit further down, but we will find out. And when you have injuries like 4 or 5, and the press don't really ask about it, then how can I put? Then it's probably it's probably not one of the stars. It's not JPP. It's not McCoy. It's not Griffin or Evans or Jackson or Gowan, players like that. So I'm going to switch over, and here we go. Wide receiver depth chart, or the offensive depth chart. We're going to start with wide receiver. No shock to anyone, or maybe a little bit. The starting wide receivers right now are Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, followed by Adam Humphries and Chris Godwin. Now, we all know that these guys, these 4 guys are sort of like, they're all co-starters. The way I would put them, from what I've seen in camp, I would put Mike Evans and Chris Godwin really close as number 1. So I'd put Evans probably, then Godwin, then Deshaun Jackson, and then a gap, and then Adam Humphries, and then another gap, and then we'll get into who I think's behind them. But so the 5th wide receiver spot is either between, right now, which this, we're just doing this for fun. Don't take this as gospel. This is just for fun. Freddie Martino and Bobo Wilson, and that's what we were talking about. Like, Bobo Wilson is in front of, at least of right now, as Bernard Reedy, Justin Watson. Bernard Reedy's been with us for a few years on the Patriots. Almost got himself a Super Bowl ring. He got cut like the week of the Super Bowl. Poor guy. Justin Watson, the draft pick out of Penn. that Jason likes so much. And then players like Jake Lampman, Dirk Cutter's actually mentioned him once, so obviously he's in the mix. And a couple of guys like you probably never heard of, Irvin Phillips, I believe, is from Syracuse, and Sergio Bailey, and I don't really know much about him. So now let's go to the tight ends. Let's check and see if there's any more comments. No. All right, tight ends. Another no big shocker. Cameron Brate and OJ Howard are the starters, and then the next two behind them is Anthony Auclair. You everyone probably expected that. And then the next guy is Alan Cross, which was something that we, here on the Pewcast, Brett and I weren't really sure where Alan's going to make the team this year. They're probably going to keep four tight ends. Cross, of course, is more of the blocking tight end, and maybe will go out for short little out routes, fake the block and then go out for 5 yards, and hopefully he's wide open and can turn it up and get the first down. Things like that. I've never really seen Alan Cross run a seam route like Cam Brate's bread and butter. I've never seen Alan Cross catch a pass more than 7 yards down the field, to be honest, or even be targeted, or even run a route 7 yards downfield. But there was Donnie Erzenberger from Western Kentucky. Jason Reese has gotten a little bit of talk as tight end out there as well. Austin Johnson is pretty much just like a clone of Alan Cross as far as what he's able to do and what the Bucs want him to do. He's more of a fullback than really a true tight end. And then Tanner Hudson. That's sort of how that breaks down. But good for Alan Cross as of right now. But let's calm down about exactly what's going on. But that's good to see, the Alan Cross fans. I'm going to take a drink here for a second. All right. Thank you very much. Now let's get back at it. All right. We're going to go with the tackles. Starting left tackle, Donovan Smith. And they got Demir Dotson on starting at the right side. That's not a surprise. I don't think Demir's going to play a little bit. He'll probably play a little. Well, I shouldn't say. I don't think he's going to play at all. But if he does, he might play a series or two because they're still slowly getting him back in the 11-on-11s at practice right now. Behind Donovan Smith, we had Leonard Wester, who also was hurt, who was actually filling in for Demir Dotson on those 11-on-11s and those 7-on-7s. So who's actually filling in on right guard. But the right guard backup is Cole Gardner. My boy. But I believe Cole Gardner's hurt as well. I think he tweaked something during training camp. No, I don't think that's right. So you got Cole Gardner. So those are sort of the four tackles as of right now. Behind that would be Cole Boozer, who's got a little bit of pub, but I've watched him on the one-on-ones. I think he's got to work on his strength and base. Now, I'm not an NFL coach, so take that for what you're worth. But of those four I've talked about, he seems to be one that struggles most with strength, in my opinion. And behind that, behind Cole Gardner's Brad Seaton. This guy's a monster. He might be the tallest guy on the team, with pads and helmets on. He was on the organization last year. They picked him up halfway or near the end of the year, and they had him on the practice squad. I think he got bumped up to the roster, but I don't think he was ever activated on the 46 man. It was just, we had offensive linemen dropping like flies near the end of the year. Dotson was out, Sweezy was out, Marpet was out. So that made room for Brad Seaton there on the 53 man roster, but not the active 46, if memory serves. And then behind those guys is the only one left is Jerry Ugokwe. I know that's wrong. Ugoque. I've seen him a few times in a couple of drills, but he's definitely on the outside looking in right now. Now we're going to move. Let me check. Oh, got another comment. All right. C counts. This is who this is. Dirk said something about 3 of our O linemen on the right side are currently injured. Wonder if that was what he meant by the 4 or 5 he was referring to. No, he wasn't. Because he was talking about Dot, and then he was talking about Beninock, who was starting right guard and right tackle, and then Demir Dotson's immediate backup, Leonard Wester, is also out. So that's what he means by the right side. Like, we're already down. When we start the game, as it is right now, I'm not really sure where Wester's out, at least injury wise. As we start right now, um, if they're going to hold Dot out, he's healthy, but they've been holding him out of practice as far as contact drills. If he doesn't start, then we're going to start the game with our third string right tackle. And if Benenoch doesn't go, we'll be starting the game with our second string right guard, which would be Alex Kappa. So it would be Boozer and Kappa, then Jensen, then Marpet, then Donovan Smith, and that would be your starting five. So that's what he meant by the right side. The right side, it just not only is there a little rash of injuries, a little injury bug running through the offensive line. It's just attacking right now just one side of the offensive line, which it's like you said, we got to go out there and play. We got plenty of guys who are gonna get out there and play, and they'll be fine. You just got to play through it. It's no big deal. It's preseason. Don't freak out. But that's just where we're at right now. Speaking of guards, we got Ali Marpet and Caleb Benenoch. So as far as the competition between Benenoch and Alex Kappa, Benenoch is winning, even though he's injured right now. At least according to this depth chart, like again, like I said, like this means really nothing. It's just fun for us to talk about because we actually finally see at least something, even though you can take it with a grain of salt. It's something we can latch onto and sort of take all these storylines and narratives we've heard these past 2 weeks in training camp, and then if you want to go further back, OTAs and rookie training and rookie camp and mini camp, you can take all these and see where how you're always thinking, okay, I think this person's going to be here and there, and this gives you a little validation, or it doesn't. But then even it gives you validation, it really doesn't mean anything. But like I said, it's fun. So back to the guards. Let's see. Oh yeah, Caleb Benenoch. Backing up Ali Marpet is Adam Geddes, and behind Demir Dotson. Oh, excuse me. Behind Caleb Benenoch, Alex Kappa that we talked about, and then the next line of guards is going to be Michael Lidke. I like to call him Ledecky, or is it Ledecky? And I like to call him Lidke. I think it's Lidke. Anyway, he's been on the team. He's been off and on for. I know he was last year as well. He was hanging around the practice squad. Uh, Gibbons Price, I don't know much about him, and the only one left after that is Ruben Holcomb. So it looks like right now the four guys that sort of have the leg up in camp would be Marpet and Benenoch, which you would imagine. Adam Geddes, who was someone they picked up uh, near the end of last year, or maybe did they pick him at the end of last year, or was it during the off season at one point? I know he'd been here before, but he was. I think they added him to the roster even before the draft this year. So it looks like he's showing well for himself. And then Alex Kappa, the third round draft choice that Jason Licht traded up to go get, has been opening some eyes, but he's just not quite there yet. I'm going to check on comments. Nope. Okay. So now we're going to move to QBs and running backs, and these are both interesting. One's kind of like, it's interesting, but I can see it. And other one's like, I didn't expect that, at least for me. QB1, Jameis Winston. Does that mean he's going to be starting the Miami game? Or they just keep him QB1 because they don't want people to freak out about him not being QB1 and start this? Well, if Fitzpatrick goes 3-0, are we going to bring Jameis back? Either one, you could probably, write a storyline for, or think about a storyline for. I wouldn't put it past Cutter to start Winston and maybe even start in the second game and then treat him as like the third QB in games 3 and 4. So Winston can get some time with the ones early, but as we get to game 2 of preseason and 3 preseason, his time with the ones diminishes as Fitzpatrick's grows. But I could be absolutely wrong. But it's Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick number 2, Ryan Gifford number 3, and Austin Allen number 4. And the running backs. Here's where it gets a little interesting for everybody. I think everyone felt that Peyton Barber was number 1, but I think everyone after that thought that Ronald Jones was number 2. But according to this, we got Jacquizz Rodgers number 2. Now, that's even in front of Charles Sims. I could have seen, this is what I thought was going to happen. It was going to be Peyton Barber, Ronald Jones, Charles Sims as third, and then we would like to see, like, where is Sean Wilson against Charles Sims, or excuse me, Sean Wilson against Jaquiz Rogers in that fourth spot. But as of now, Jaquiz Rogers in the second spot, bumps Ronald Jones a spot to 3. And as these are listed, it looks like they're all in the same column, but they're not in alphabetical order. So it looks like Sean Wilson right now is a little bit above Charles Sims, is above Charles Sims, who's above the only other back in camp Dare Ogumbwale, I think. So that was interesting to see, and that might just, like I said, we're overanalyzing this, we're reading into all these things. That might be as because he's not getting rewarded the second spot right now because he is just checking on the comments. Uh, he isn't where he needs to be in pass protection and catching the ball out of the backfield, not as a third down back. But it besides that being a surprise, it also is a surprise if you take this as Wilson above Sims, which speaks great for Sean Wilson, but not so much for Charles Sims. I like Charles Sims. Like, I understand he's completely one dimensional, but so what? Just execute the play. Um, if it's 3rd and 8, you're like, if Charles Sims is in, they're not going to hand off the ball. Well, yeah, it's 3rd and 8. They're not going to hand off the ball, but get Charles Sims out on the edge in space, and he'll make the first guy miss every single time, and he can take it to the house and get the first down. He's hard to bring down out in the open. With one guy, I can't remember anyone bringing Charles Sim down except for maybe an ankle or a shoestring tackle. He'll definitely make you miss. So on to the defense. Duke. Okay, no comments. All right, that's fine. That's fine. All right, we'll start with the defensive end. This usual suspects here: Vinny Curry, and Jason Pierre-Paul, followed by Noah Spence. Which with the second team, which is a little bit interesting because we've been told, and I think it's true still, that he's just going to be in there as a third down specialist, as a pass rush specialist. We say third down, but if it's 2nd and 16, I think Noah Spence is going to be in there. Or 2nd and 12, or 2nd and 10, or 2nd and 15. Noah Spence is probably going to be in there. But they did put him ahead of Will Clark, who looked like he was the defensive end behind Curry when it was like second team, when it was like 1st and 10 or 3rd and 2, something like that. And it's 3rd and 2, and the second team defensive line is in there. Like Will Clark was one end, and it still might be that way, but the Buccaneers thought that, I guess, maybe putting Noah Spence down on the third wasn't exactly accurate, or that they like Noah Spence where he is, and maybe he's jumped up in front of Will Clark as far as rundown. Being an edge setter with a second line. I don't think so, but there it is. Behind Jason Pierre-Paul is Will Golston, which is, for me, it's nice to see because I like Will Golston. I think he's an excellent edge setter. Or at least he was 2 years ago. Put on some weight. Now he's lost it, but he's been struggling to camp, man. He's a lot of guys shouldn't say a lot, but he's been tossed around a lot, and his bull rushes haven't seemed that successful. It's just one-on-ones, and I'm talking about just haven't really looked impressive. Something when you're okay, here's Will Golston. I want to capture this. I want to see this. I want to take it. I want to film this and tweet it out, and then you see it, and you're like, oh. Come on, Will. Like expecting a better showing, and it looks like that he's getting coached up a lot by Buckner, getting yelled at a lot by Buckner. I've seen JPP pull him to the side a couple of times and talk to Golston. So it's good to see that he hasn't fallen off the cliff so far where he's behind somebody like Damone Harris, who is behind Will Golston at the JPP spot. So the third string would be Will Clark and Damone Harris, like I said. And then the others is Patrick O'Connor, Evan Parizo. I don't even know who that guy is. Like, I don't know nothing about him. And uh, Keontae Anderson, or Kalante. I think it's Keontae. I think I sent a tweet about him when we first got him. So there you go for the defensive end. No big surprises really at all. You can make your argument where you put Spence in there because he's really more of a specialist. And we'll have that same problem when we get down to the cornerbacks because they don't have a nickel back spot, like a place for starting like nickel corner. So we're going to run into that problem a little later. But let's move on to defensive tackles first. Oh, we got a couple more questions. Charles Sims is fine fourth running back if he's our fourth, but he doesn't have to contribute on special, but he does have to contribute. Charles Sims does like he does contribute on special teams and has been for years. He's a lot of times uh, when they're in punt protection, and I think I'm right on this. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I might be wrong, but he's on the punt coverage team, um, and they use him to be sort of the guy that's offset uh, off the end to sort of pick up the guy that comes free type of deal because he's so good at picking up the blitz on third down. And that's one of the reasons he still stays on the team is because on third down, he's not going to get your quarterback killed. He's not going to go to the wrong spot. He's not going to, uh, miss his assignment. Chances are. So that's what I think about that. Okay. Do you think Dirk will install a less predictable offense this year? We have way too many weapons. Uh, I know there's a lot of conversation out there about Cutter's offense being predictable or bad play calling inside the red zone or bad play calling in general. Um, Now, I don't understand how an offense can move the ball up and down the field inside the 20s and then stall out. And when it stalls out, all of a sudden it becomes the coach's fault. I mean, he called the plays to get you down there. Um, so I'm more on the side of the fence where I think it's execution more than play calling. I think there's good arguments for both those stances, as in being, some of the play callings were unimaginable. This is what I would like to know. Besides the short pitch, I think was it Chicago or the Giants game? It was at a home game. It was a short pitch. It was a pitch. Oh, excuse me. It was a pitch to the short side of the field inside the 10, and it got blown up. Okay, now that's the one everyone hangs their hat on for poor red zone uh, play calling. So let's say Dirk Cutter calls 3 plays in the red zone and they don't score. But none of those plays are like, Mike Evans had one-on-one pass coverage outside, but none of those play calls are to Mike Evans. And they don't score. We're going to hoop and holler and yell and scream like, well, Mike Evans had one-on-one. Like, you could have thrown it to, why didn't you throw it to him? Now, if you take the same circumstances and Mike Evans is one-on-one outside and Jameis throws to him 3 times and you don't score, if you're anti-cutter play calling, you're going to say, why don't you try something different? Obviously, it's not working, so it's, it's the old adage, and you've heard it 1,000 times. When the play works, you're a genius. When it doesn't, you're stupid. And I think we fell into that a lot last year in the red zone. I joked at the beginning of the off season, I think even before the draft, when we heard that Monken was going to be a true offensive coordinator, as in be a lot more involved, like step away from the wide receivers and being more involved in the offensive game plan. Like I would like to see Cutter call the plays, between the 20s, and then when it gets inside the red zone, let Monken do it and see what happens. Do I think that's going to happen? No, but I think Monken's influence hopefully does bring a little bit more imagination. Now I can see it if you're talking about things like why didn't we throw a slant to Sean Jackson, or why do we have to run the end around to Bernard Reedy? Just because he's on the 46-man roster doesn't mean you have to get him in the game. Why did we have to have a series where we put Jacquizz Rodgers at running back? Like we were doing fine with well, we weren't doing fine with Martin, but Barber was doing, like, just because the guy's dressed, why do you have to make sure he touches the ball at least once in the offense? Like, if you're gonna run end around, give it to Sean Jackson. That's why you have him. So I can understand those arguments. No one's actually brought that question up to Cutter that I've seen. So I don't really know how to answer that, or he might have a good reason for it. So and most of the time when there's something you dislike about a play that Cutter calls and someone asks about it, his reason I can understand. I don't always agree with it, but I'm like, okay, now I see what your thinking was, and that wasn't poor thinking. It wasn't stupid. It just didn't work out. Let's see. My wife said, "Good job by you pronouncing some difficult names." Well, I don't know if I'm doing it. I mean, I can say Stevie Tuiko Avatu, yeah, and the safety Donald Igwebuike, because I learned how to say that when his uncle or cousin used to kick for us. Those other guys, I don't even know if I got it right. All right, so let's go to the defensive tackles. We got Gerald McCoy, no shock. Starter Bo Allen in front of Villavea, which is a lot of people thought that Vita Vea was going to be starting DT as soon as they drafted him, and I and a couple other people were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, it's Bo Allen. That's why they brought him in here. That's why he was a day one signing, or not day one, day two. He was their first, I believe, him or Mitch Unrein. And he got a press conference. Like, this is why the guy's here. He was going to start. So behind Gerald McCoy and Bo Allen is Vita Vea and Mitch Unrein. No shocker. Mitch Unrein did go off today. He was one of the guys that went off. I remember I saw a tweet about that, but no info on it. But he was walking, so like they didn't pull a cart out and brought the cart up to the $1 place, let him get out and walk into the trainer's room. He walked from the field, from what I think happened. I didn't see video, but yeah, I shouldn't say that because I didn't really see video. Anyway, Mitch Unrein was one of the guys out there, but we don't know where he's at right now. And the behind them is Devontae Lambert and Stevie Tuikolovatu, and no one else. Like, that's it. They got 6 DTs in camp right now. Stevie Tuikolovatu has shown, at least a couple of days I've seen him, he's shown some really good strength up the middle on his bull rush, to be able to collapse the pocket from the inside. And if he's going to make the team, you can add that to his repertoire to be able to get on the field. When JPP or McCoy need a blow on third down, to be able to push the pocket back, because with the quarterbacks we have in our division that we play twice a year, they're so good. They really don't mind outside pressure. Of course, they don't like getting hit from their blind side. They don't like getting crushed and getting sacked and falling underneath 250 to 290-pound guys. They don't like that. But what makes them uncomfortable is when they can't step up in the pocket. And you got McCoy and JPP pushing the pocket in, into their lap. They can't step up from the pressure from the outside, get that clean pocket, and make the throw down the field. So if Stevie Tuikolovatu can make that happen, and show that he can do that, that might be something that he might be able to stick around for, because we'll do a show about where we think how many positions are going to hold, like how many defensive linemen they're going to keep, and like that. And Stevie Tuikolovatu, he's on the bubble. Devontae Lambert's been around for a couple years, up and down on the practice squad. When we really got hurt with defensive line injuries 2 years ago. I actually think he got in some. I think he got in the Carolina game on Monday night, and that was one of the reasons Cutter ran the ball so much with Jaquiz Rogers, was because his defensive line wasn't going to hold up against Cam Newton in the offensive. So they tried to play keep away. It's like our defense line is not really good tonight, so we're going to try to keep the ball offensively as much as possible, and it worked. We won. Thanks to Brent Grimes. Appreciate it, Brent. All right, now we're gonna move on to line. Let me check for questions. Okay. Hey Buccaneers, Bruce. Those guys need to be hit in the middle of the pocket from the DTs. Yeah, right. That's exactly what I was talking about. What is your bye week record prediction? I got a solid 2-2. Um, sure. Uh, I haven't even really looked into it. I don't know. I can't even remember who the Saints drafted or who Philly drafted and who they lost and who the Saints lost. By week 3, we play Pittsburgh. Ben Roethlisberger might be hurt. Andre Brown might be out, or Fitzpatrick might be hurt, and we're doing Ryan Griffin. It's such a fluid thing to say so far out, what you think's going to happen. But if it's 2-2 going into the bye week, I would be pleased. 3-1 minimum. But 2-2, I'd be happy going into the bye week at 2-2. I really would, because that gauntlet, as you know, of course, the gauntlet of the Saints, Philly, and the Steelers it's not going to be fun. The defense doesn't show up. If they played last year, we're 0-3. If defense shows up, they're going to have to win these games like they did in that 5-game win streak 2 years ago. The defense, we were putting up a lot of points during that 5-game win streak when we played. We won against Seattle, San Diego, Kansas City, the Saints. It was the defense. So, hey, thanks for the new subscription, Jeremiah. So once again, I'm hanging these 3 games on the defense more than I am hanging them on the offense, because it doesn't matter if the offense puts up, 28 points. If you give up 35, what are you going to do? But I think I'll know more after these preseason games, especially after the third one. We sort of see this pass rush unleashed a little bit and see what it can do. Now on to linebackers. No surprise if you've been paying attention. Darius Taylor, who is filling in for Kendall Beckwith at the strong side linebacker position, aka used to be a Darius Glenn. Quan Alexander, never heard of him, and Levante David. Yeah, I don't know who he is either. Just kidding, of course. So those are your three starters. Now, Kendall Beckwith is the fourth at the strong side linebacker, or the Sam right now. So everything's going to change when he gets healthy. My co-host of the PeterCast, Brent Allen, thinks that he is going to start the year on the PUP list. I don't think so, and I hope not, but we shall see. So right now, behind it, Adarius Taylor is Devontae Bond. Behind Quad Alexander, middle linebacker is Riley Bulla. And behind the will linebacker is Cameron Lynch. Now, Devontae Bond was a draft pick a couple years ago. They redshirted him. He does have some pass rushing ability. You know, he's quick for his size. He's a good tackler, pretty classic linebacker. But I think what fans are sort of looking for, because Jack Sitchie, who's behind Bond at the Sam position, was playing a lot of middle linebacker with the twos last week or this week. You know, however both weeks, because it sort of spanned the weekend. You know, this little chunk of practices. He was playing middle linebacker with the twos in front of Riley Bulla. So to the casual observer, you were like, okay, you know, looks like Sitchie's doing well. His arrow is trending up. It looks like he's in front of Riley Bulla. Oh, poor Riley Bulla, another year in the practice squad. But that's why that's what preseason's for, and preseason practices are for. Like, they were trying him there to see what he had, and he may end up being there. He may end up beating out Riley Bulla. He may not. He may not end up being on the team at all. But uh, that's something to keep an eye on, because I think as of now, it's Adarius Taylor, Quan Alexander, Levante David, and Kendall Beckwith. Now, if Kendall Beckwith comes back before the season, that gives us 5. And if they're going to keep one more, I think it's really a race between Devontae Bain, Raleigh Bulla, and Jack Sitchie. Cameron Lynch, I guess he sort of has the fame of being on Hard Knocks 2 years in a row. He was with the Rams 2 years ago. They cut him. Then he was with us last year. We cut him. He's just on the cusp of just not quite being good enough. And when you come to a team like the Buccaneers with Quan Alexander, Levante David, and someone you just drafted who end up cracking the starting spot, and someone who I like as much as Darius Taylor, but I guess, I don't know how many offers Cameron Lynch got. Maybe it was the only offer to come into camp, and there you go. It's an easy, 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand, however much they get paid for this, sticking around this preseason. Some other guys behind them is Shadim Salam. Don't know anything about him. Nigel Harris. I kind of remember, like, hear the name about it. Maybe he was here last year, but nothing out of him so far that anyone's talked about. And then Eric, I can never say his name, Nezikcha. Uh, he was the kid from Germany. That's why we have a 91 man roster. It's sort of this international, NFL without borders thing, where there's a all of NFC South, and I think they extended it to another division this year, has this international player. He's not really an international player. He was born in Germany, but I think he was an Army brat, and he played his college ball at Wyoming. But since he's actually a German citizen, or has dual citizenship, he counts as this, NFL without borders type of plan. He was on the team all last year. He's the 91th man on the roster, doesn't count against the 90-man roster. He's going to be put on the practice squad, which we'll get 11 because of him, but he's never allowed to be called up and put on the 53-man roster. Like, that's the deal. Like, we're making you take this guy. We're giving you an extra roster spot, and we're giving you, and then when you have to cut down your roster to 53, we're giving you an extra spot on the practice squad so he can be there, but you just can't play him. Basically, it's an extra body to run scout teams and special teams and things like that during practice. I'm not really sure what the end all be all is about this. What the NFL's trying to, maybe they're trying to get a foothold of get some players that might be popular overseas, and people follow them on Twitter and sort of becomes fans of the team to get them involved in the Buccaneers. That seems like an awfully small and slow game to play. But I don't know. There's my version. Let's check out. All right, what do we got? Buccaneer Bruce. Do you think someone like Shahid Salam can battle for a backup spot by getting it on? No, I don't on special teams. And here's why. The special teams are at least the bulk of this, the guys that run down and make the tackles, like on the kickoffs, on the on and punt coverage. They're linebackers and they're backup wide receivers. The gunners, the guys on the outside are usually like backup wide receivers or backup cornerback safety, guys that can fly. The tweeners, linebackers are sort of, I think they're tweeners of the NFL. They're too small to play defensive line. They're too big and too slow to play cornerback or safety, but they're all great athletes. That's why you see around the NFL that uh, there's a lot of teams that have really good linebacking core. Why? Because it's sort of like it's like the average guy. Obviously, these guys are big and quick and fast, but there's so many guys out there that are big and quick and fast. But there's not a lot of guys that are like 280 uh, 300 pounds and 6'9" that are big and quick and fast. There's not a lot of guys that are like 6'1", 5'10", that are like 185 that can cover somebody as they're backpedaling. There's not so I guess it's the least specialty spot in my opinion on the defense. It's basically you have to run and tackle. Like that's really it. Like you got to be able to go sidelines to sidelines, and you can't be afraid of contact, obviously, and you have to be a sure tackle. If you're that, you're a linebacker. That's just the way it is. So I really don't think that Shahid Salam or Salmon is has a chance because they're gonna keep if they keep five. That's Darius Taylor, Quan Alexander, Levante David, and Kendall Beckwith. Okay, Darius Taylor is going to play all types of special teams. That's five. You keep six, then is he going to jump ahead of of Bond? Is he going to jump ahead of Riley Bulla? Is he going to jump ahead of Jack Sitchy, who they drafted? And a lot of people said he was a third round draft pick. I think he's got a real tough sled to go if he's going to make this team. But you never know. There could be a rash of injuries, and they really need his body. So we need somebody to play, and you saw that happen last year at the linebacker spot. Levante David went out for a little while. Quan Alexander went out for a little while. Kendall Beckwith ended up going out. Then Darius Taylor broke his leg. So it was sort of a mishmash um, at the linebacking core almost all season. And all right. Cornerbacks. Now, this is a little funky because there's no nickel. Like there's no nickel position in this depth chart. But the starting quarterbacks are Brent Grimes and Vernon Hargreaves. Not a big shock, actually. Some people could have argued that, they're hoping for Carlton Davis there, but not as of now. The main backups are Ryan Smith, who has been in practice, been the main backup when Vernon would go inside, or when he was, nicked up and couldn't play. Ryan Smith started outside and stayed there, and then when they went to nickel, MJ Stewart would come in. But Carlton Davis is the next guy behind Brent Grimes in outside corner. Behind them, we have MJ Stewart. Now, I've said this so many times. It all depends on how Vernon Hargreaves plays. Is Vernon Hargreaves going to play nickel well enough to be able to keep MJ Stewart off the field? And that's sort of the question. And then is Vernon Hargreaves going to play well enough to keep? Excuse me. Sorry about that. To keep Carlton Davis off the field, like that, like it's going to be interesting. I think they're all going to we know Hargreaves going to make the team, Grimes going to make the team, Ryan Smith, Corey Davis, and MJ Stewart. They're all going to make the team. Now, if we go with 6 DBs, this is sort of where it gets interesting. But back to those 5, it all depends on Hargrave is the piece, and how well he plays depends on how everyone else gets shuffled and set up in the deck. Till finally we get Hargraves and what he's going to do. Is he going to play both? Is he going to start both? Is he just going to play one? It depends on which team we play. Like if they have 3 really good receivers, do they want Hargraves just to play nickel solely? Because like something like the Giants, they were in 3 receiver set like 85% of the time. Are they just going to put Hargraves, inside and just leave him there for the game? So, as far as Davis and Smith and Stewart, these guys' playing time is totally going to depend on how Vernon Hargreaves looks this preseason. He's the keystone to this archway. if you allow me to get away with that. But what's interesting is Javian Elliott. He's the one. He's the next guy up if you keep 6 defensive backs, which isn't out of the realm. Um, he was a nickel corner just about exclusively, or has been exclusively for us. You can't really tell if he's ahead or below Stewart in this, but behind them is David Rivers, who there was been a little talk about, and Marco Myers has been a little talk about too. Uh, who No, I've seen Marco Myers make some splash plays, like a pick here, pass break up there. But granted, it's been against the third team. You can even make an argument against the fourth team or a third team patch team. Um, that's where we're standing at cornerback. And then safety, Chris Conti, Justin Evans. Let me check back on the comments real quick. Hopefully Grimes doesn't fall off a cliff. Yeah, right. I think Grimes is just taking I talked about this with Brent. Grimes doesn't look hurt. Like, they haven't talked about his injury. They haven't said like it's a leg or a shoulder or what it is. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, okay, Brent, come back. We're gonna give you $10 million, and you don't have to practice as much as you want to. So Brent came out and practiced for like 3 or 4 days, and then the next 3 or 4 days, he just stands behind the defense and plays hacky sack with the football, and he does handstands. These are all things he does. Like, he's always moving, always, always moving. The guy is a bundle of energy, but he does handstands and I don't want to say backflips, but he's just always sort of standing on the field. He doesn't stay on the sidelines. He stands way behind the safeties on these 11 on 11 and 7 on 7 drills, and just kind of hangs out and does his thing. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's just at that spot where he goes, yeah, I'm not practicing today. And the Bucks are like, cool, because you know what? I would really want to see what Carlton Davis, what Ryan Smith, what MJ Stewart looks like against the number one offense. So uh, I like it. Like, I think it's just helpful all the way around. Now Grimes hasn't looked, like Grimes, honestly, in this training camp, but it's so early, and there is going to come a day when he can't play anymore. Let's face it, there's just going to come a day. But let's just, like you said, let's just hope it's not this year. All right, safeties. Back to the safety position. Chris Conti, Justin Evans. Sorry, Chris Conti haters. He had a couple bad plays early in his Bucks career, and then he's been pretty consistent after that. So get over it. They know he's not the answer because they keep signing him to like these 1 year, 2 year deals. But he's not the worst safety in the NFL. He's just not. So get over it. Plus, he's made some touchdown saving tackles that everyone seems to forget about. Then behind them, we got Keith Tandy and Isaiah Johnson. How interesting is that? Because he's in front of Jordan Whitehead, the rookie, who they drafted out of Pitt. But he missed mini camp and he missed OTA, so this might be a thing of him not catching up, or he's just not getting it as quick as he wants to. And Josh Robinson is also in the Whitehead group, the third team there, who is a special team standout. Now, I don't know this year, because of all the talent in the defensive backfield, that just being an outstanding gunner on punt coverage is gonna get you on the team. It did last year and it did year before that, but I just don't know. Now Josh Robbins can fly. Like, he's 4.22 fast, like 4.22 40-yard dash fast. Uh, but he's never been able to come near to cracking the lineup at cornerback or safety, because they've bounced him back and forth, I think, every year. The first year he was here, they put him at safety. Then last year they had him listed as a cornerback, and then this year he's back at safety. So I don't think it really matters with Josh Robinson, because he's not going to play except for special teams. But I don't know if there's going to be a spot for him this year on the 53 or the 46-man roster. Um, so we'll see with that. And then that'll round out with Josh Liddell, who's recently signed. I believe he's for Arkansas as safety. And then Godwin Igwebuike, which is a little shocking, to be honest, because the Bucks gave a lot of money, as far as an undrafted free agent money, to get him in camp to see what he can do. And once he's got here, it's pretty much been nothing. Haven't heard anything about him. No one's asked about him. None of the coaches have gone out of their way to talk about him. So it's a and this depth chart sort of proves it. He's behind Justin Evans, Isaiah Johnson, Josh Robinson at the safety position. So, and if you count him as one, because they were kind of the same position in Mike Smith's defense, he would be the last. He's in last if you take this as gospel, One, two, three, four, five out of 8. So something to keep an eye on with there. And then we'll just round out with the special teams. Place kicker, kickoff. It's going to be Catanzaro. They gave him like $3 million, guaranteed it. I think his next year's guaranteed $3 million. He's missed like 2 or 3 kicks all camp. It looks like he's going to be solid. Like it's so solid, no one cares anymore. Like just it's back to he's a field goal kicker, he'll make it. So all we have to do is wait till everyone's going to watch when he makes, goes out for his first extra point or first field goal. And then everyone's going to sort of watch when he gets to something over like, around 44, 43, 45 plus yards. And then, of course, when he has to make a kick in a game to either take the lead in the fourth quarter or win it, as time's winding down, once he makes or miss those, and that's when everyone's going to make up their mind on Catanzaro. Trevor Moore's got a big leg. He's just not accurate with it, but he's putting some tape down so NFL teams can he's got some tape with an NFL team. Can never hurt. Here's another question. Godwin Igwebuike has to be on the outside looking in at this point. Yeah, for sure, especially where they say he's at. I agree 100%, but it's something to watch going forward for sure. That would be a question I would ask Dirk Cutter or Mike Smith if I ever had a chance to get back in the press conferences. Okay, and then of course Bryan Anger's the punter. The holders Bryan Anger. The backup holder is Keith Tandy. Okay, and then that backup punter is Ryan Griffin. Well, that's weird. You figured it'd be the other way around, but if Bryan Anger can't hold the ball, breaks his finger, gets his hands cut off in a hail baling accident, Keith Tandy's the guy in front of Ryan Griffin. Long snapper Drew Ferris. His backup is Adarius Taylor. I don't like that so much. I remember when, oh God, who was it last year? It was a guy out of Buffalo. Was that last year? Or was that 2 years ago? Anyway, Darius Taylor had to snap at the second half of a game because the long snapper went down, and his first time out there, he got like folded in half, and the field goal got blocked. But he improved a little bit better as it went along. And then Alan Cross is the third string long snapper. Okay. Here we go. Punt return and kick return. Punt return, Adam Humphries. Deshaun Jackson is second. I would like to see John Jackson back there taking punts. And he might be sort of the emergency, like, okay, if we're going to get back in this game, we need, something a little different. Let's get Deshaun back there. And maybe they just don't want to make him the starter or be back there all the time because he is, in his 30s. And no offense, Adam Humphries is a little more important to the offense than Adam is. And then third is Bernard Reedy. And then fourth, Sean Wilson, the running back out of Duke. It's a little for him to be safe. He's a little too far down on the depth chart as far as punt returns and kick returns and the running back spot. So Dirk Cutter said he's excited to see him versus Miami. I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see anybody versus Miami. I just want to see the Bucs in uniform and hitting somebody besides their own team and getting tackled to the ground. That's the most frustrating part about training camp is I don't know if that was a good run or not because they don't tackle him. I don't know if he would have broken that tackle, or I don't know if even the angle was right because sometimes the angle they'll throw their hands out on a two-hand touch, but the running back actually might have had the angle on him and he wouldn't have got him if he was trying to tackle him to the ground anyway. So it's something I'm really looking forward to. It's tackling to the ground. Kick return, Jacquizz Rodgers, kickoff return. Okay. Bernard Reedy second, Josh Robinson third, and then Sean Wilson and Ronald Jones are pulling up the rear at fourth and fifth. I guess it's a good sign for Reedy to be there. I'm a little bummed that Bobo Wilson's not on there instead of Reedy. That would give you a little bit more of a saying a lot, give you a little bit more, I guess, of a look or confidence that where they put Bobo on the depth chart as far as wide receiver that would say, okay, well look, they got him at second. Oh, excuse me, I sneezed. At second and third on punt returns and kick returns, but so that's it. That is the way to over-examined depth chart that we have done. And there you go. It's out there. Thanks you guys for jumping in and throwing up your comments or questions in the chat room. I have a special guest. Recording the call tonight, and I'm going to put it in tomorrow's Ren's Training Camp Journal, episode 9. I'm going to practice tomorrow, so if you're going to practice tomorrow, this is sort of what I look like. If you're listening to the pod, obviously it's not it, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna wear my PewterCast shirt tomorrow or not. Yeah, I should wear it. I'll wear my PewterCast shirt tomorrow. It's black. I'll probably have black long sleeves underneath it, so it'll look like a black long sleeve shirt. I'll be in shorts and a hat backwards, pretty much, and I might have big headphones on my head. I'm gonna try something different tomorrow when I take film of the plays. If I take this headset and I can plug it actually into my iPhone and I can give live commentary and tweet those out and see how that goes. I hope it goes good, but it'll be a way to get out a little faster, I think, and a little something different that not anybody else does. So I'm looking forward to that. Best way to get to contact me is on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football. And of course, follow the creator and owner of the PewterCast, Brent Allen, at Brent Allen Live on Twitter. God, I'm sorry. Somebody dropped pepper in the room. And he also runs the PewterCast Twitter account at the PewterCast. And then you can find that on Facebook, Instagram, all those things. Go out to our YouTube channel. I'm gonna have to end this. I'm gonna get to sneeze. I'm gonna do like 30 in a row. Sorry, everybody. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ the PewterCast. Like this video, but more importantly, subscribe. We're trying to build our following there. We've had this format, sort of in our package as we push out our podcast, and we just were never using it. And finally this year we decided, like, that's a dumb idea. Let's see what we can do with Ren's Training Camp Journals, get it out there. So many people follow, so many people comment, and from what people told me Thursday at training camp, they like it, and it's one of the ways they follow us, and I don't even know if they even know we have a podcast. Maybe they think this is all we do. Who knows? But until tomorrow, we're going to have a special guest. It's going to be fun. Can't wait to talk to you guys tomorrow at training camp, and we'll see you. Bye.